Hey guys, welcome back. This is History of Futurama, Season 2, Episode 17 of my show. Which is also gonna be about Episode 17 of Season 2. Now, before I start talking about it, I just want to mention, since we're on Episode 17, that means we got 18, 19, 20, yeah, so 3 more videos. After this video, we got 3 more videos left to cover for Season 2. I just wanted to get that out of the way before I started the video. Anyway, this is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 17, which is also about Episode 17. And Episode 17 is known as Bender Gets Made. Now, before I actually start talking about the episode, I should clarify something. The name of the episode, it has to do with Bender sort of joining the Mafia, the robot equivalent of the Mafia. I just wanted to get that part of it out of the way, just so, and this isn't not the human type, but a robotic type, but which I'll explain later. But anyway, the way this episode first starts off is the Planet Express crew is with Bender, and they're watching a live taping of his favorite cooking TV show. Cooking with Eldar and stuff, and he says that he says it's excited to meet his TV Eldar, and then he said that this is the greatest nanosecond of his life, and then he said that because he says it like a nanosecond, which is short. I'm guessing a nanosecond is shorter than a second. So he says this one is and this one, but then when he gets to one of them, he mentions, wait, that one was slightly more terrible than the others. And then basically they're watching the show and the live taping of the show, and then basically what happens is Eldar starts cooking up one of his Neptunian type dishes, and he mentions that he, of course, every now and then, and when he introduces himself, he's getting a good look for the crowd, and he tells them to try the pasta because it's got a profit margin. Now the reason why he said that is because Eldar isn't just the host of Cooking with Eldar. He's also the owner of a restaurant in the series called Eldar's Fine Dining. So basically, he basically has 2 jobs. One as a celebrity chef, and the other as a owner of a restaurant. So I'm guessing in this case what he does is he tries to get people to go to his Eldar's Fine Cuisine restaurant just for a publicity thing. Because he mentions about the pasta and how it has a great profit margin, and then basically... Oh, speaking of which, I should mention something about Eldar before I continue. His catchphrase in the series was known as BAM. Oh my god, that's funny. I say that's funny because it just reminds me of something else. I just wanted to get that. It kind of reminds me of the Flintstones, sort of, because of the one character, Bam Bam, that baby, that with the club and everything, I'm sorry, I know it's kind of stupid for me to make a reference to it, a type of kid show in an adult TV show, but no matter. But anyway, basically uses the Spice Weasel once, but then Bender wants him to use it again. To basically, he asked him to knock it up another notch for them so that he could get it with his. But Eldar basically said that he doesn't want to. But after some prodding again from Bender, what happens is he's like, all right, if it'll get you to shut up, against my fair judgment, I'm gonna bam it up another chance. Once again with my Spice Weasel, and then Bender uses his camera to take a picture, but the funny thing is, Bender takes a picture of Eldar doing that while he's holding the Spice Weasel in his hand. So basically when the camera flashes, Eldar's hand jerks, causing him to squeeze on the Spice Weasel to cause the spice to come out of his nose, which then basically gets in Leela's eye, which temporarily blinds her. And then basically what happens is after that, she gets taken to the hospital and for an eye treatment to see how it's working. And then the doctor basically asks her to look at these pictures and tell her what she thinks they are. And then he shows her the first one, and he asks what it is, and then she says, a grayish blob. And he says that's right, but then he shows her the other one, and then she said the same thing, that it's a grayish blob. And that's when he says that's not as right, because the first one was a grayish blob, but the second one wasn't. I don't know. I think it's just a test that people do to check how a person's eye is. Gets to show them pictures of what they and tell them what they think of them and stuff. And he tells her that her eye just has some swelling and that she'll have to wear this eye patch over her eye for a while. And then after she puts the eye patch on, the others, she leaves the hospital, the examination room, and then after the others see her, Amy basically yells at her that they're right there, and then Leela tells them that she's not deaf, tells Amy that she's not deaf, she just has to wear this stupid eye patch over her eye for a while. And then basically that's when Eldar shows up again, and then basically offers them a free meal offers them a meal at his restaurant and as guests. And basically what happens is Bender gets happy about that, and then after that what happens is they're at the restaurant, and then basically after Eldar whips them up a bunch of different dishes, like for Hermes he basically whips up a couple of Jamaican-based food types like jerk pork, jerk chicken, and so on and so forth. Bender has what's known as the anti-quote. Now I'm gonna mention what this is because he actually gets fried to try to eat it. The type of food Bender has is a type of robot food known as sterno-nischweiss. Now the reason why I find that funny is because it's robot food, and the reason why I'm laughing because of that part is actually, oh my god, I'm sorry, because what happens is Bender basically gets fried to try it, because Bender's like, oh, Fry, you've got to try this sterno-nischweiss. but then Fry says that he doesn't want to try it because that's robot food. But Bender makes him eat it anyway, and then his mouth starts burning a little, and then he says that it tastes good. And then basically afterward, after they're finished their meals and stuff, and the professor says that that steamed carrot that he ate was a little too spicy for him, and then basically Eldar gives them these chocolates, which he says are complimentary. Now the thing about the chocolates is that it has their bill underneath it, and then after they see the bill, Leland he's charging them to pay him after he blinded her, and then he said that, hey, I made you a meal, this isn't a charity, and then after they decide not to pay, they get arrested by the cops and then taken away for not paying, and then, but Bender decides to keep them out of jail by offering to pay off their debt to Eldar by working part-time at his restaurant. But Eldar's a little skeptical about Bender working, and then because he usually hires people who are a little more unbearable, and then basically the others try to encourage Eldar to take Bender up on the part-time job stuff, and then what happens is afterward Eldar says that he says it's fine, he'll give him a shot, and then basically afterward they get happy because they don't have to go to prison for not paying. Oh, and before I continue, I just should mention something about one of the cop characters. He mentioned something about about an incident that made him become what he is in the series. It made him become a cop. And then that's the only backtracking I'm going to do for that part. And then basically, what happens is in the next scene, Bender is back at the Planet Express building and tell them that he's off to work his part-time job, to help pay off their debt, and he's gonna have to have someone from work fill in for him while he's away working at his part-time job, and that's when Farnsworth gets the idea, like he's like, better yet, I'll make your replacement some kind of mutant atomic monster with it. And he says some babble about what it is, and then after Bender hears that part, he said that if that new guy doesn't work out, just call him and he can come back in a jiffy. And then basically, what happens is Bender starts working his part-time job to pay off Eldar's to pay off the debt that's owed to them, and then that they owe Eldar. And then basically, while they're working, these three scary-looking robots come in, and then Bender wonders who they are, and then all Eldar tells them at first is, let's just say they're very good customers, and I won't say anything else. But then Bender inquires about who they are, and he's like, are they the Robot Mafia? And then Eldar says yes. Now the Robot Mafia, I'm just going to explain something. The Robot Mafia is basically comprised of three different robot characters. The first one is known as the first one is a character by the name of Joey Mousepad. Now the reason why that robot is named Joey Mousepad isn't because of the Joey thing. Well, the funny part about his name that I find is the fact that he has the mouse pad. Now, it's because on his chest he has a click, like, you know those things that they use for computers, like a click thing, and you have a pad underneath them, a mouse pad, because he's got a mouse and a pad on his body, and then the other one is basically just called clamps. Now, the reason why he's called clamps is because he has these two claws claw-like hands that act like clamps, and he uses them for clamping stuff. And I just wanted to get that out of the way because that causes a little bit of a funny thing with clamps in this episode of Joey Mousepad when they're later trying to heist the Zupin cigars from the Planet Express ship. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then the third robot, who's the member of the Robot Mafia, his name is very self-explanatory. He's known as the Dawnbot. Because basically, mob bosses and mob families and stuff, they have heads and stuff, like ones that are in charge and stuff. So they have like people that are Dons, which is the people that are in charge of the of that segment of the crime families and stuff. But that's just what I wanted to get out of the way with it. And after the Dawnbot gets annoyed with the table, and they want to take a table that's already taken, but they can't because there's people sitting there, but Bender clears it up so that they can go to it. And then basically what happens is after that, after Bender is with the Robot Mafia, and talking with them at the restaurant, the Dawnbot office wonders if Bender would like to go begin working as a hired goon, and he says that he's always wanted to get into gooning, and because of that, he tells Eldar he quits. And then Eldar says K, and then basically what happens is basically Bender joins up with the Robot Mafia because of that, and then basically he goes to one of their hideouts, which is a meat seller, which is a meat freezer and stuff, because the Don wants to tell them about a job that he has for them, and then basically but when he goes there to learn about the job, there's another robot there, and he's like a poor robot, and he's like, Dawnbot, I beg of you, I cannot make this week's loan payment. Look into your hard drive and open your mercy file. But then the Dawnbot is like, and then the Dawnbot's like, file not found. And then he has Joey Mousepad and Clamp start shooting him. And then basically, but the shot that they deal to him, they don't kill him, they just injure him to the point. And then the Dawnbot mentions that, is he clear? And then basically, the robot is mentioning he's thanking the Dawnbot for sparing him. And then basically what happens is, while Bender's there, he finds out about the Robot Mafia's next job, and then he mentions to them that, then the Dawnbot mentions to them that they're going to be pulling a heist, so he's got to have an alibi as to where he is at the time, so that to not get involved with the cops and stuff. Oh, but before I continue, I'm just going to backtrack to the part where Bender was at the restaurant. The reason why I'm backtracking there is because the reason why Bender joins up with the Robot Mafia after that point is because of the Dawnbot gets intrigued by Bender because of the fact of Bender tried to pull a fast one on the Dawnbot at the restaurant, and then Clamps was trying to getting angry with him for that, but then the Dawnbot started laughing, and then that's when he decides to take Bender in as a member of the Robot Mafia. And now I'm just gonna backtrack to when they were back in the freezer. They were wondering about what they should call Bender, and then basically Clamps was just called Clamps. The Dawnbot was known as the Dawnbot, and Joey Mousepad was Joey Mousepad. But Bender had just a generic robot name, so they needed to give him a sort of a code name for him and stuff. And then that's when Bender mentioned that he should be called Blotto because of it gritty and stuff, and that he could keep some of his ticket. And then basically, after that, what happens is the Dawnbot basically. Now getting back into it, getting back into what I was mentioning earlier, the Dawnbot tells Bender that they're going to be pulling off this heist. So, of course, since they're going to be committing crimes which are against the law, he's going to need to provide him an alibi for his whereabouts, and that's when he comes up with the alibi which is basically him causing, which is basically he has a recording of himself being sick at the Planet Express building, and that's around the same time that they're about to make a shipment of Zubin cigars. And then after Fry hears Bender's recording and thinks that it's him, Fry mentions that they gotta take their stop Sundays because they're gonna take off, and then basically Fry thinks that he's talking to Bender, but he doesn't know that it's actually a recorded version, and so he eats Bender's blast off Sunday instead. And then because he can't eat it because he thinks Bender's sick, which he's not because it's a recording. And Fry tells Leela that Bender's sick, and then he wonders if she's gonna be okay to fly with that eye patch, and then she said that she is, because a good captain could get around with feel alone. And then basically she launches the spacecraft before the roof part of it is open in order for the launching, and then because of that causes a wreck, and then Hermes is like, "That's coming out of your pay!" And in that case, he's talking to Zoidberg, and then Zoidberg gets upset with that, and then the next scene, the Dawnbot is basically, the Dawnbot, Joey Mousepad, and Clamps are basically, along with Bender, in their sort of like hover Mafia car, and then basically Bender serves them up a meal, and then he wonders what this heist of theirs is, and then basically the Dawnbot mentions that they're heisting a shipment of Zubin cigars, and then when Bender hears that, he's like, "Zubins? Those are the finest cigars in the universe! I could stink up a whole maternity ward with one of those things." And then basically Joey Mousepad mentions that they're coming upon the target, but when Bender sees what the target is, he starts spitting the stuff out because the target is the Planet Express ship. Oh my god, I'm sorry. But I had to laugh because that's kind of hilarious. Anyway, basically what happens is after that, in the next scene, the Dawnbot lays out the battle plan as to how they get the cigars and stuff, and then he mentions about someone doing some clamping, which is a reference to clamps, and then basically he says after that they go home, and then basically Bender said that they all without killing because he doesn't want to kill them because they're his friends, but they do want to kill them because and then Clamps is like, "Oh, they're gonna die. It's gonna be like clamp, clamp, kabamp." And then basically, afterwards, what happens is, they start blasting the ship. Well, they start fighting the ship in a space battle, and they start blasting it. Well, Joey Mousepad and Clamp start blasting it, and then when the ship flies towards where they are, basically, Joey Mousepad gets scared, and he's like, "Oh, they're coming towards the proximity. Maybe you should use the clamps." And then Clamps is like, "Gee, you think I should use these clamps that I use at every day, at every given opportunity? You're a freaking genius, you idiot!" Oh my god, you're a freaking genius, you idiot! Because he's being rhetorical because it's clamps and stuff. And the clamping actually does help out because it clamps on the fuel pump, and the fuel pump sign says "do not clamp." So when it clamps, Leela thinks that... Oh, that reminds me, when they were fighting first, what happened was, Leela was distracted because she thought Nibbler's food dish was the wheel when it wasn't, because she was temporarily blind because of her eye patch. And then, which meant Fry had to basically use the ship to defend, while Leela was preoccupied with driving what she thought was the steering wheel, but was actually Nibbler's food dish. And then afterwards, when Leela realized it, she's like, "Wait, why do the letters that normally say Turnmaster Steering Wheel Company say Bender? Oh no!" And then basically Leela realizes that she's turning the wrong thing, and she gets back to the wheel. And then afterwards she mentions to Fry about that, and then basically Fry's like, great. And he's like, "The one time I forgot to buy flight insurance." And then basically that leads into what's happened with Joey Mousepad and Clamps, where he says about the whole, and when Clamps put the clamps on the fuel pipe, which said "do not clamp" on it, and then basically what happened after that was Leela noticed that the engine was stalled, so she tells Spud that she's trying the manual fuel pump, which is not actually a manual fuel pump. It's Nibbler's eye that's on the top of his head. That's a part of his, it's one of Nibbler's eyes that's on this portion of his skin, which is attached to his head. So she's using it like a fuel pump and hurting him at the same time. But she doesn't know that she is because she's temporarily blind. And then basically the Robot Mafia shows up on the ship, and then basically the Dawn basically explains to Joey Mousepad and Clamps that blindfold them so that they can't see who they are anymore. And then when Joey Mousepad sees that Leela's got an eye patch, Joey's like, "Hey boss, looks like somebody already did the job, huh?" And then basically when Leela hears that, she's like, I'd have to guess that's a joke at my expense. Well, who's laughing now? And then she kicks Fry on accident. And then basically the Dawn wonders where Blotto is because he should be with them learning the tricks of the trade. And then Bender shows up, and he turns down his voice modulator from robot to king, so he starts talking in a British accent. And then basically after that, while he's talking in a British accent, he's apologizing to them for being late, because he's like, "Sorry for being tardy, old bean. I was just enjoying a tasty watercress sandwich." And then afterward, after that, the Dawnbot tells Bender, aka Blotto, to tie them up. And then he's like, capital idea, old sport. And then basically Nibbler starts yanking on his foot to get him to stop. And then Bender, in his British accent, says, I say, get the hell off of me. And then basically what happens after that is then Leela starts to realize that the one that he'd called Blotto sounds a lot like Bender, which is true. It's just Bender talking in a king-like British accent. And then Bender accidentally knocks Leela's eye patch off, but manages to put it back on. And then they find that there's a robot on the ship because of the crew list. And then they said, and then after that, when Joey Mousepad mentions that, the Dawnbot says, good, when you find him, I want you to plug him. And then unplug him. And then basically they get upset about that, and then Bender, as his Blotto persona in his British accent, mentions that he should be able to handle him. He tends to be a rough customer, so he starts fighting his recording self, and it starts smashing it, and then he gets back out, and then basically he tells them that he dealt with it, and then the Dawnbot is telling Bender that he's happy about it, and he likes him and his latest accent. Keep up the good work, and he just might soon give him his own pair of clamps. And then Clamps gets a little annoyed by that, and then basically after that, the Dawnbot decides to leave. But while he decides to leave, what happens is they have to take the score and stuff, and tie them up so that they don't, interfere with them getting away with the loot. And that's when Bender mentions about him doing the dirty work, and that leads into what the Dawnbot mentioned before about Bender's latest accent and Clamps getting annoyed. And then basically what happens is, afterward, Fry and Leela start to try to mourn Bender because they think he's dead, which he isn't. And then Bender shows up, and then afterwards, Leela tries to break out of the restraints that they're put in, but instead of breaking out of them, she accidentally breaks off Bender's hands, and then basically Fry told them that Leela was calm, cool, and she was when she was in danger and she had to fight, it hurt. When she had to kick or punch someone, it hurt. It really hurt. He meant that because she was blind at the time, so she didn't know who she was hitting at the time, so it makes sense. And then basically, she said that now the time for them to take her eye patch off, and then Zoidberg said that he'll handle the snipping because he had the proper equipment, which at first, I'm just gonna let you know something. At first, when I first watched this episode and I saw this scene with Zoidberg, I thought he was referring to his claws, but he instead of using his claws, because he's a lobster, instead of using his claws, he uses scissors. And then basically, after Leela's eye patch gets cut off, she starts to see someone she thinks is Blotto because she saw someone right as her eye patch fell off, and then basically she sees the professor, and then she starts to think that he's Blotto, and then he thinks that he says that he, and then she asks him where he was, and then then the professor asks where is he now, and then basically after that, Bender goes to the door to answer it, and he sees Tinny Tim, and he thinks that the Robot Mafia sent Tinny Tim after him. So he kicks Tinny Tim's little robot crutch thing, and then basically, Tinny Tim like, Tiny Tim's like, "Jolly good kick, sir, but I'm actually here to deliver your cut on the cigar heist." So he gives Bender his cut, and then basically after Bender starts eating a couple of bills, Bender tells Tiny Tim to tell the Dawnbot that he's staying away from organized crime. For now on, he's just gonna stick to the regular kind. And then basically, when they're back in the building, what happens is Pride mentions to Bender that it's too bad, Bender, with him sick and Leela blind, he's the only one who knows what happened there. Maybe someday he'll tell him about it, and then basically Bender's like, maybe someday I won't listen, and he starts eating some of the pills that Tiny Tim gave him from his cut, from the cigar heist, and that's basically where this episode stops. So if you guys like this video when I post it, just please give this video the real best you guys can, and I will see you guys, probably, maybe sometime tomorrow or the day after tomorrow for the next video. But until then, guys, like I always tell you with this series, fun on a bun.